Chris, so thanks again for joining the show. We were talking a little bit before we jumped on and hit that record button. But I did want to jump right into the question. So, what inspired you to get into marketing? Why not sales? Why not something else, right? You're so close to revenue.
Yeah, I've been in the sales roles. My career is flip-flop between sales and marketing pretty much for its entirety. So I started off in a outbound sales role, literally, going around Milwaukee, knocking on businesses' doors in person,
Oh, wow.
trying to sell printers. So that was
Yeah.
the introduction to my sales. As I was starting to get into that roles with sales, I realized that I could do this at scale with marketing. And it started to become a frustration of mine when I'm looking at this and thinking, we could hit all of these businesses on LinkedIn. We could hit them all on Facebook. Why am I going on a one-to-one relationship trying to knock on these doors to sell these printers when the same message that I'm going to deliver, I could do at scale? And that's really where the marketing interest peaked. My degree was in marketing, but as anyone that's done a marketing degree will tell you, you don't really learn anything about doing real marketing. It's all theory and principles. So I was pretty eager to start actually applying, some of the ideas that I had. And that's when I actually launched my first tech startup, which was it was a SaaS platform to help high school age athletes, basically research universities, get connected with college coaches, college recruiters, and became kind of a matchmaking platform. From my own experience being an international recruit, getting recruited to play college soccer. So I launched that platform. And that's really where I got to test different marketing initiatives because I didn't have a lot of funding to do it. It was very scrappy. It was very guerrilla marketing. And that's really where the love of marketing came from. And that really just propelled my career and interest in the field as I started to learn more and more about it.
Yeah. And why demand generation? Why not a different avenue? Because marketing in itself, it's already pretty broad, right?
It is. For me, I was doing demand generation before it became popular and before it was really, I think, categorized as this entire field that, basically marketers now move into. Hey, we're a demand generation agency. We're a demand generation marketer. That's a strategy that has now been very well publicized. I think it's also pretty broadly overused as a term and misunderstood. A lot of marketers claim to be doing demand generation, but it's just lead gen without having a white paper download. And that, again, for me, getting into demand generation, I was doing it very early on where we were posting different content and we really focused on how can we just educate our market, knowing that they are going to come back full circle. So being able to do that 3 or 4 years ago, when running ads on LinkedIn, running ads on Facebook were considerably cheaper, the targeting was a lot better on Facebook, we were able to really capitalize on those early stages of getting into demand gen, which then led me to ultimately starting Catalyst, which is now where we specialize in doing that with companies at scale.
Yeah. And the one thing that I love about talking to agency owners, right, is pretty much talking about, or business owners, whatever, it's all the same to me, is talking about like what you see from all your customers, because when you have clients, right, that you work with, they all have different budgets, they all have different needs, they all have different goals, right? But what have you seen that you're like, man, this is consistent with most of my customers? And
Yeah.
What's usually that issue that you see?
Yeah, as an agency owner, you're right. You get to see it all. And because we don't specialize in a specific industry, there's a lot we can learn and apply from one client to another. It's not like we have the same problem with all of our clients because they're all,
Right.
edtech platforms. We see it across the board. So that's a great perspective that we have. One of the biggest, I think, issues that our clients and across the board as an industry are facing at the moment is something that I talked about, 3 or 4 months ago when we started hitting this idea of we're going into a recession, we're going to have rising ad costs, marketing budgets are going to get scrutinized because of that. The biggest issue that you're going to see is that everybody is going to switch from demand generation into demand capture, which is basically just saying they're going to move from running ads that are going to really educate to, hey, we're going to try and get as much into the pipeline as quick as possible. So we're going to really heavily invest in Google ads. So across the board, Google ads has skyrocketed in the CPMs, the cost per clicks, the cost per conversion on that. And that's something that all of my clients are experiencing right now. And from that, the opportunity that we found is that there are less buyers in the market right now. The cost of Google ads has significantly increased. And therefore, if we can double down on generating the demand earlier on these LinkedIn channels, these Facebook, these Instagram, these TikTok channels, generating that demand at a more profitable rate effectively, we can set up that company for success in 12 to 18 months rather than trying to scramble like every other basically companies doing with their marketing budget right now and shift all of it into Google ads.
And what have you seen that has worked when it comes to all these customers that you see, you're like, hey, this works the most as the demand gen strategy or tactic, you know?
There isn't a specific playbook that I think is going to work effectively with all clients. What we found is having that mix of understanding the size of the audience who's in market. And that's really, for me, the mistake that a lot of marketers make is they don't understand how many people are actually in market. So they overinvest in these demand capture channels. They're basically overserving in the demand capture channels and then not understanding the entire size of the market of who your ICP is and being able to hit them on a regular basis. So for instance, if you're selling to SaaS companies for, website development, understanding the amount of SaaS companies that you can sell to and being able to create content that you can get in front of them on a daily, weekly basis to continue to educate them so that once they enter that buying mode, they already know about your agency. They already know about reaching out to you directly. You don't become this commodity. That's the style of marketing that we've had the most success with. Typically, that involves a mix of LinkedIn and Google. LinkedIn for me right now is the most effective platform to be distributing content on top of funnel because of the targeting levels that you have. And a lot of companies push back and say, right, we want to go on Facebook. It's more cost effective. It's lower CPMs. The ability to target on Facebook, it just isn't there anymore. 5 years ago it was, but it's not there anymore. So the ability to target on Facebook is a lot more difficult. The approach that we've seen that has the most success is taking that top of funnel on LinkedIn, being able to then set up those retargeting layers on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, where we can continue to basically push content at a lower price point once they've already entered our funnel of marketing and we've got that touch point on them.
And how do you unpack that for the customer? Meaning, when I mean unpacking it for the customer, how do you get that deep research as in who's in need right now, who's ready to buy, who needs to be educated? How do you unpack that for each customer?
Yeah, first and foremost, we're looking at the volume of search for high intent search terms around what that business is offering. So we're looking predominantly at Google Ads, looking for those high intent search terms. What are the volume with that? With any given client of ours, that basically saturation point is going to differ. So for some clients, that could be at $5,000 to $10,000 a month on Google Ads is where we feel that we're capturing the demand of enough people that are coming in there, where if we invested any further, it's going to have that diseconomies of scale. For some clients, it could be $25,000, $50,000 a month. It really depends on the volume of what you're trying to offer. We have some clients right now who are basically creating categories and therefore there isn't that demand capture option at the moment. They don't have people who are searching for their solution. And that's actually an interesting.
That is interesting.
Dilemma.
It sounds like a good idea and let's just run with it without actually doing research with it.
It is. And that's one of the things we came in and we looked at Google Ads and said, right, we're investing all this in Google Ads, but nobody's searching for your solution because you're so early on with the technology that you're offering right now that people aren't actively searching. Therefore, we have to really focus on the educational content earlier on. So depending on the life cycle of the business, depending on the mix of the marketing budget, the industry that they're in, we basically work with clients to create kind of a custom recommendation on that, depending on the channels and the budget that we would recommend kind of to have the most basically profitable marketing campaign with them.
And is it usually a blend of organic and paid, or are you more like pushing them to do organic?
We push all of our clients to do paid. So everything that we handle with our clients is all paid advertising. In terms of organic, that's something that I think you should be building up over time, but it's not going to yield the results in the same speed that you would with paid. So basically, you look at organic, one of the big things that I'm preaching, well, really just because of my own experience, is this founder's brand. Everyone's heard Dave Gerhardt's the founder's brand. The CEO needs to be having a podcast. They need to be able to produce content. That's something that I think every CEO should be taking the time to invest in that. Every C-level executive should be taking time to really create their own brand with that. That to me is the most effective organic approach that you can take rather than focusing on things like SEO, which if you have great SEO, it's phenomenal. But the amount of time that it takes to build that up, it's not something that's going to invest for the next 6 months. It's an 18-month, 3-year plan. So when you have it, it's great. But a lot of my clients, these B2B SaaS companies, they don't have 3 to 5 years runway. They need results today. And that's where we shift the majority of focus to paid.
That makes sense. Especially because you have the experience and you've seen it really take off with your other companies.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that is kind of not quite a rinse and repeat, but there are approaches that we can take that basically, when clients come to us, why would we work with Catalyst instead of, bringing somebody in-house? We have the reputation and the success rate of doing this. And therefore we know that we can plug and play a strategy with you that will need adapting over time, but we know the results that we can get with this. And that's where the state of the economy right now is really posing an interesting challenge for a lot of marketers who are basically having justify budgets to leadership. And a lot of leadership right now are calling for this switch back to lead gen because of the fact that in theory it gets results in a shorter time period. But as we all know, it doesn't over, in terms of actually converting, but it's easier for a marketer to show those results.
Yeah. I'd say a lot of people holding onto their money and afraid to experiment, even though it's something new that will change their mindset and also really the results as well. But I see the hesitation a lot of times, even when talking with marketers. They want to play it safe more than anything. But then everyone is playing it safe. No one is seizing the moment.
Exactly. And that's where the greatest opportunity is that when everybody's playing it safe, and that it basically, everybody plays it safe. The safest option right now as a marketer is put it in Google Ads. You're going to have more expensive costs. You're capturing demand. That is the safest option. Cut budget, basically just run Google Ads. But you're not generating anything for the future then. You're just capturing what's there, and you turn your product basically into a commodity where you're competing against everyone else that's bidding those search terms. If you can generate demand today that's going to come into fruition in 12 months, 18 months time, that's where you can really separate yourself. But as a marketer, a lot of marketers are scared of losing their job right now. Nobody really wants to rock the boat. And that's where I think a lot of companies are struggling to innovate at the moment, is nobody wants to kind of stick their neck out and say, hey, this is a strategy that I want to test. When it is, shaky waters.
Now, you mentioned not being a commodity, right? So that's everywhere. And if, let's say, 5 of your customers, they all want to do Google Ads, right? Or everyone is doing Google Ads, right? And they're all the same type of industry. How do you separate them from being commodity to something different that really sticks out?
Yeah, that's for me where the founder's brand can have the largest impact. When you can have people that can buy into the concept of why the business was started, the mission of the business. If we're looking at things like marketing analytics platforms, there's 5 to 10, they're all going to be the same. They're all similar price points. Why would you choose one over another? Recommendation, really referrals, discount codes, whatever. But
it's really the trust in the founder.
Exactly. And that to me is where the founder's brand can be so pivotable to the success. I
love that.
The company is how can we get people to buy in? It's the same thing with demand generation agencies. There are tons of demand generation agencies that have popped up, even in the last 6 months. I mean, every time I go on LinkedIn, somebody else has started a new demand generation agency.
Oh, sure. And even a new title. Hey, I'm a new demand generation. I'm like, what were you before? Or ads manager. I'm like, what?
I ran a lead. I was a lead generation specialist, and now I'm pivoting to a demand gen. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
But for me, the reason clients come to Catalyst is because of me and because of the podcast episodes that we go on and the brand that we have. And that's where, again, I push that so hard with clients because I've seen the success, and it almost makes it easier for them because they're seeing us have that success. And it's the same that you have. I know I've seen on your LinkedIn, I've seen you post where you get, referrals. It's LinkedIn, it's Pavilion, it's, different kind of communities that you're in. They come because of you, not because of not that the quality of work, isn't exceptional, but they don't because of that. They come because you're the brand and they want to work with you and your theories.
Right. That's so true. And even before we got on here, we were talking before we hit record, where you're like, I feel like I know you because I've been watching your videos on LinkedIn. And that's so true. The same with you, because you're posting on TikTok. You started before me on TikTok. And I was like, wow, I like this, that, you're pumping out videos on LinkedIn and TikTok. I'm like, wise move. That's very wise to do that. But you're also building, like, I'm resonating with you. I'm relating with you. I understand you. I like your style. I like your personality. I like your character. Like, it all comes in to where, okay, the need's there. I'm going to reach out, or I'm going to refer you business because I know who's talking about that topic specifically. I've gotten referrals even on LinkedIn in the DMs. They'll slide into the DMs and they're like, hey, Seuss, I have this person that's looking for this. Would you be interested? I've been following your content on LinkedIn. I'm like, yeah, tell the founder to reach out to me. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for me, producing content organically is word of mouth marketing at scale. And it does it. And the best part is that once you build it up, once you build up that engine, it's like going to the gym, it's like, building any muscle. Once you build up that content creation muscle, it just goes. So for me now, I mean, it's second nature. Coming on podcasts, producing videos, we have a whole production setup now where after this video is done, I know this is going to be posted in 2 weeks on my LinkedIn profile. I don't have to touch anything. And that's the beauty. We've set up those kind of systems. And that's something that now we're working with our clients basically to say, as Catalyst, we'll take over that heavy lifting for you, because as a CEO, there's two reasons that you don't produce content. One, you have the imposter syndrome and you just don't feel like anybody cares about what you want to say. And number two, you don't have the time and the bandwidth because of this kind of fear of the amount of video editing, going on, adding subtitles, all these different steps you have to go through that as a founder, if you've never done it before, it just seems like a massive mountain to climb. So one of the things that we're now starting to kind of pilot as a service is, hey, we'll take over all that for you, because it's more important to me with my clients that you produce content, because that drives demand, which ultimately drives results for us. And that's kind of the
so that's more like ghostwriting services.
Not ghostwriting, more of the post-production after the podcast, after creating content. Let us take care of all that for you.
You chop it up and everything.
Yeah, send us the hour-long recording. Let us send you back 10 videos that are all going to be chopped up with subtitles, meme style, that you can then just drop straight onto your LinkedIn profile. So every week, if you go on a 30-minute podcast, you're going to have 10 videos to post that following week. That's been something that we're just starting off. We're trialing with a couple of clients now, because we've been asked several times, and we just, in the past, we've referred to different agencies, we referred to different companies that do that. And it got to the point where for us, we weren't seeing the results by referring them out. The quality of the work wasn't what we were doing in-house. So it just made sense for us to start offering that as a service.
I love that. And I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. So after you provide all that, does your client actually post it, like the founder posts it?
Yeah, the founder still posts it. That's good. The big thing for me is that I don't want to, like you say, ghostwrite. I don't want to be in a situation where the founder, basically we take over their profile, because it's inauthentic. And for us, for Catalyst, we're experts on demand generation, on marketing, on conversion, sales. Like that's what we talk about. If you're going to go and do a financial services company, I'm not going to post for you content on that, because I have no idea about that.
Of course.
And I mean, I never admit that, but I have absolutely no idea to be able to post on that. I can bullshit with the best of them, but you don't want me talking about financial services. That's something that you need to be posting. So when we can get you on podcasts, when you can have your own podcast, we can chop it all up for you, send that to you, and then you're posting that regularly. You're building your audience. And basically all we're doing is the heavy lifting of actually getting the content in a point where it's engaging, rather than these hour-long podcasts, which are great if you're driving an hour to work every day.
Yeah.
Who's doing that anymore?
But what I also see too is once they post it, right? I spent, 15, 30 minutes to write the post, and they post it. Are you also teaching them or coaching them to like engage in other people's posts, or there's some send friend requests, for a better way, a lack of saying it?
Yeah, there's a system that we have where we're basically automating outreach to their ICP consistently. So when they are producing content, it's getting in front of the right people for them. So a lot of our clients we bring on, we actually use a tool called Organically, which if you've not tried it, is a great tool. And we can basically pull in a list of the ICP, automatically have those invitations sent out, so that we know that content is now getting in front of their target. We do it all from their profile. And then every time they're posting, it's getting in front of them. They can get the engagements, they get the inbound messages from that. And it allows them to basically build up their own audience as well. And then we work with them on basically best practices for LinkedIn. How should your profile look? How basically viewing your LinkedIn profile as a landing page for whatever call to action you want to have on there. How can we optimize that and separate you from the other 99% of LinkedIn profiles, which just are incomplete and don't really look very good? Let's use that as to our advantage and drive traffic to that desired destination using your LinkedIn profile.
That's interesting that you said that, because I have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and that's the basic that I have. I have no other software. And what I do is I just purchased it. That's funny. That's how much you know how much I focus on sales right there. So I just purchased it like 3 days ago, mainly because I have all these salespeople, like legit salespeople at tech companies telling me like, oh, dude, you got to get LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Because now LinkedIn has changed to where I used to even just being on without the paid, plan on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I could see, people at different companies. Now it's like, you have to get the premium in order to view one single human. And I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, this is aggressive. Like, but it makes more people go to purchase your premium. So I'm like, okay, I talked to salespeople. They're like, yeah, you should definitely get that. That's like the minimum that you can do. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So I did it. I created a list of accounts that fall under my ICP. And I'm like, I'm just going to focus here in Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area. because I'll get too overwhelmed if I focus United States. Well, then, dude, it generated me like 500 accounts. I'm like, shoot, I'm already overwhelmed. I'm like, that's a lot. Now, I'm not doing anything to scrape the emails or anything like that. Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, okay, I'll go account by account. I look at, decision makers. I'm like, okay, here's the CEO, founder, here's the marketers. And then, who posted the last 30 days. I probably have like 42 saved leads in my lead list that I saved. And I just started this, keep in mind. And then I'm like, cool, I'm actually engaging with people that I'm like, wow, I don't ever see these people in my feed. And I'm like, this is like taking it to the next level. It's more like intentional and focused. But then I'm like, dang, I just spent like 2-3 hours on this. I'm like, this is time consuming.
Yeah, that's where you've got to automate it. It's especially, I mean, finding clients in your ICP is the easy part, and then finding 3 or 4 people at that company, you got to automate that outreach. And again, for me, if I'm automating outreach, like anyone that's a CEO or chief marketing officer, C-level executive of any startup that's raised under 10 million, you'll get an invite from me probably within 6 days of announcing that you've raised the capital. And it's not even, we're not going to pitch anything, but just to have in the network then. So for me, I've got that automated. So every week we're just sending out connection requests.
The short message, right?
I actually don't put a message on it. I found that when you add a message, the connection
I heard about that too.
Is significantly less. So I don't have a message on it. And then if they don't accept it within, a week, 2 weeks, it just removes them and basically removes that invitation. And we just cycle through all the time. So we're constantly adding people into the network. And it's interesting how quickly people then see a couple of videos and reach out and say, hey, what a weird coincidence. We've just raised capital. We need help with marketing. It's like, oh, what are the chances?
And what's the software that you use for that again?
That's all Walaxy.
Walaxy.
Okay. Yeah, it's a newer company.
I got to check them out.
I would check it out. Yeah, it's a newer company. They're going through some growing pains. The software is 95% of the way there. There's a couple of things that they're kind of like, they're releasing updates pretty regularly, but it's a phenomenal tool. Out of all the LinkedIn prospecting tools I've used, and I've used a lot of them, by far the most comprehensive. And it's less aggressive because it doesn't, you don't have to send messages. That's where people get pissed off. What you want to do is send a connection request, build that authentic relationship, engage with their content, have your content be consumed by them. And then over time, they're going to reach out if they have that need.
Have you heard of that's great. Have you heard of Aware?
Mm-mm.
There's a tool called Aware. It's basically social selling tool.
Right.
And basically you need LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And then I haven't looked into it. I haven't requested a demo or anything like that, but I just came across it. Just talking to the founder, and I'm like, dude, why don't more people know about this stuff? Like, this is pretty awesome. But basically it does everything where you can just spend like 10 minutes looking at different interactions. Like as soon as talk to Chris, blah, 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 blah. Maybe I should reach out to Chris. Boom. So it's really interesting. It's like you get more insights.
Okay. Yeah, I have to check that
Instead
out.
of me spending 3 hours, I can only spend 10 minutes. But check it out.
Yeah, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, we'll talk more about this too off the podcast. That way we can geek out on this stuff. The other question that I have that I'm always interested in talking to B2B marketers about is, what is your website strategy?
Yeah, for me, it was really, it was more of a lack of strategy with the website. I knew when I was starting Catalyst that the reason people were going to come to me in the first 3 months was because of me and my reputation. And it was going to be clients that I'd worked with in the past. Bear in mind, I ran a software development shop before this. I'd built technology for a number of SaaS companies who were already reaching out to me regarding marketing questions. So I knew the moment I announced I was going to have a marketing agency, there was going to be that early stage demand for that. I knew there was going to be enough clients basically to bring on very early on to start growing that. And with that, the website basically has become a place to book a call with either myself or somebody on my team to host all the podcasts that I'm on and basically talk high level about the strategy. But the only way to find the website really is through my LinkedIn profile. And that's something that honestly has been quite deliberate, is that we're not trying to have this massive agency. I don't want to work with 100 companies a year. It's a very boutique offering that we service clients with. It's a very custom and personalized service that we do. And therefore, we're not trying to grow at this crazy rate. So we don't have, a ton of SEO. We don't have, Google My Business. We don't have this enormous website where you can spend hours browsing through it, because of the fact that the way you find a website is by watching my content and understanding the type of marketing that we do, and you align with that and you want to work with us. So when you come in, you can book a call very simply. I would say the one thing that we have on there that I've preached before and I recommend everyone having on there is just that self-reported attribution. Where did you hear about us? Just for the fact of we can then tie that back. 90% of people are coming through LinkedIn right now. We've had the odd TikTok, we've had the odd referral. 90% is LinkedIn though. And then from there, it's just about getting on basically a discovery or a qualification call to understand whether we're going to be a good fit for you as much as you're going to be a good fit for us. And then we'll kind of move down that pipeline.
I love that. How are you on time?
I'm good on time.
The last question that I have is, why do most marketing agencies don't drink their own Kool-Aid?
Yeah, most agencies don't drink their own Kool-Aid because they struggle to attract the right type of clients to what they're trying to offer. So as a marketing agency, like I mentioned earlier, everybody is starting their own marketing agency right now, and not everybody can do the type of marketing that they want to talk about. Demand generation is very cool right now. People want to talk about it. People want to. I was talking to one of my clients the other day. I said every time I go on my LinkedIn newsfeed, it's just drivel of demand generation, basically best practices with it by a lot of people that really have never done this, so don't really understand it. But it's just regurgitated information. And it's to be honest, I've started spending a lot less time on LinkedIn recently because of how boring the newsfeed has got. And I've got a new idea that I'll talk about afterwards of how I'm trying to kind of do something a little bit more interesting. But in terms of marketing agents being able to drink their own Kool-Aid, or lack of being able to drink their own Kool-Aid, because of the fact that they're not finding and attracting the right type of clients, they're bringing on small businesses, they're bringing on companies that are, roofing contractors, random companies like that, where you can't run demand generation for everybody. It doesn't fit for every company. It very much fits a certain type of client. In my experience, B2B SaaS companies with an ACV of $10,000 to $15,000 plus. If it's less than that, you're going to struggle to do demand generation because of the fact that you're trying to educate too large an audience over too long a time period to really get that CAC payback. So you have to understand the type of clients that you're working with. Another thing that if you go on Upwork or any job posting board, every marketing agency right now, they're just contracting out all of their work. So you don't have that same uniform standard where you might have, one or two individuals in the agency that really truly believe what they're saying, but then you contract it out to, somebody in Russia or in Spain or in Poland or wherever that is to try and kind of capitalize on that advantage with the salary difference. You don't have that same quality. And that's where, when I talked about earlier, I'm not trying to grow Catalyst at this crazy rate. We really have no goal to become a 100-person company, a 50-person company. It's very much maintaining the quality so that when a B2B SaaS company raises high 6 figures, low 7 figures, they know that we're the team that can take them to that next round without having to have an internal CMO, director of marketing, director of demand, any kind of in-house marketing paid specialist up until where it makes sense. And that's where, again, a lot of companies hire very early on. They make that mistake. We're very expensive right now. Good marketers are very expensive. It's upwards of 150, 200,000 a year right now to get a good quality marketer. And therefore, a lot of startups simply, it just doesn't make sense. So if you can augment your team by working with an agency like Catalyst, we can get you to that next point and then help transition that over. And that's where for us, we've had the most success.
That's awesome. And it's very, very true. I think also the not practicing what you preach, right? That's another thing too that I see with agencies.
Yeah,
especially with us, because we're in WordPress web development agency. But then we see other agencies out there that do websites, sometimes WordPress, something different, but they don't keep it up to date. They don't do the web vitals optimization or other things to help with SEO or best practices or accessibility. And it's kind of like a little scary, especially if you're a potential customer and you're looking at agencies to work with. It's very scary. Like if they're not practicing what they're preaching, like it kind of shows the level of quality and care. So that's kind of the reflection that I see.
Well, it's the same thing on the marketing side. When you have someone that runs a marketing agency that talks about the importance of personal branding and producing content, but hasn't posted on LinkedIn for 60 days, that's your biggest red flag right there. That's a lot of, and I have this a lot on inbound calls, a lot of the clients or potential clients who say the reason that we that we wanted to basically reach out and have the conversation with you is we see you posting all the time. It's obviously working. It attracted us. How can we do that? And that's where, again, showing kind of the proof is in the pudding, being the example for a lot of your clients. That for me has been something that's been really successful, that it wasn't necessarily the goal when I started producing content. I just wanted to be able to talk about it. And now we started attracting the right kind of clients. Now we've kind of established ourselves as a leader in this field. That's been kind of the longer term effects that we've managed to take advantage of from doing this now for, the past 12 months, posting 6 times a week. You do it for long enough, you're going to attract the right type of people.
Oh yeah, it definitely compounds. And then the other question that I had is, what if you have a company that comes to you, potential customer, B2B SaaS company, and they have a very tight budget, right? And maybe they can only do one, LinkedIn or Google. Which one do you recommend for them doing?
Yeah, to start off with, we would do Google. We would start off with Google Ads straight away, demand capture, set up easy wins, show that we are getting closed won opportunities, show that we're filling the pipeline from that. And then from there, we can start to basically move into those next channels once we start to have that revenue coming from it. If a company comes to us with a very tight budget that can't really afford to run 2 channels, investing in LinkedIn, it's too much of a longer term play to see success, where truthfully, the client isn't going to be with us long enough to do that. If 6 months later, if they're not getting a return on that, they're not going to continue to invest in it. And that's where, again, when we talk to these early stage companies, it's about setting the expectations. We have clients that are spending as little as $5,000-$10,000 a month on across all platforms. We have some that are spending 50, 60, but we have, some of our early stage companies very early on with that. Therefore, we take it onto Google. We show that the demand is there, that we're able to capitalize on that. And then we start working with them in more organic ways in terms of creating the podcast, creating that founder's brand, getting the LinkedIn profile set up, showing some of the automated outreach that we can do through LinkedIn, being able to really help them understand what the advantage of these platforms are without having to invest very heavily, and then being able to shift budget once we see success. Because any company, once they see success, especially any company that's VC backed or has raised capital, it's not that they don't have the money to spend, they're just not comfortable doing it. So how can we basically build their trust to the point of where they feel comfortable investing more budget? And that for me is always the first victory that we get with a client, is when they feel more comfortable and they say, hey, we've spent 5,000 this month, now I want to do 15,000. That to me shows that we've earned their trust to the level where they feel comfortable increasing this and they believe in the long-term vision that we have with that marketing. So that's kind of the strategy that we always work with clients: get those early wins, show success, build out the campaign from there.
I love it. How long on average does it take for demand generation strategies to start clicking?
I would say 6 months plus is where you're really going to start to see your return on demand generation, not demand capture, not Google Ads. Google Ads can be a month. Demand generation. That being said, we ran some campaigns with clients recently where the first month we had 2 closed ones and $60,000 ACV close in the first 30 days, and they're looking at us going, "Oh, is this normal?" I'm like, absolutely not. Like, the fact this has happened is phenomenal. I have absolutely no idea why this happened.
Pure luck.
Yeah. We just happen to hit people at the right time. And I do have to sit down with them and say, listen, this is not the status quo with this. This is not necessarily going to happen every month. It's great that we've had those early wins and hopefully it will continue. But just be prepared when you're talking to leadership. Don't make out like we're going to be closing 60,000 a month by investing, 10,000 every single month. It's just not, it's not realistic with that. So it's any demand generation. It's 6 months plus. After 12 months is when you're really going to have that compound effect. And that's where, you see the number of leads coming in, you have complete authority within your field. Everybody knows you, you go. And then again, you go into these exhibits, you go into these conferences and everybody comes and talks to you. They see we see your LinkedIn ads. We've seen that video that you did. We've seen this, we've seen that, all that anecdotal feedback. That's when you're at that point, it becomes a lot easier, not only to close deals because your sales team, everybody, you call them up, hey, this is Chris from Catalyst. Oh, great. I know Catalyst. I can have that conversation. I'm more receptive to that conversation. But the amount of inbound requests just goes through the roof because eventually everybody needs a service. It's just a matter of being top of mind when they enter that buying mode and not trying to force them down a funnel when they're just not interested or not at the point where they even have budget approved to be able to purchase.
Totally. Okay, I lied. I have one more question. My other question is, TikTok or LinkedIn, which one do you personally like the most right now?
I actually prefer TikTok in terms of my consumption, only because LinkedIn right now, honestly, it's almost a chore for me to go on LinkedIn at the moment. I can't stand the newsfeed. It's so repetitive. It's so boring. It's just nonsense. And I always have to remind myself, my clients or potential clients that come through LinkedIn to me, they don't have my newsfeed. They're not connected with thousands of marketers, and therefore they're not having the same newsfeed experience that I'm having.
Right.
For me right now, LinkedIn is such a drag to go through the newsfeed that I'm unfollowing people, I'm removing connection requests, whereas TikTok is interesting. It's fun,
very interesting,
exciting. However, in terms of generating clients, LinkedIn is completely, for me, a landslide victory in terms of who's generated the most clients this year. But one of the things that I was actually flushing this concept out with a couple of clients I've kind of mentioned it to recently. So me and my wife, we bought a 36-foot Class A RV about 2 months ago. We completely gutted it and we've been renovating it. And our plan this winter, we live in Wisconsin. The winters are just brutal. It gets to like negative 20 degrees. Like, it's just miserable. So for me, I have no interest in being here in the winter. Summers are amazing. Like, lake life here is beautiful, but winters, couldn't think of anything worse. So for us, we're planning on, and we're about 2 weeks away from completion, but we've renovated this RV. We've recorded everything. And we've started partnering with different outdoor brands right now, who are going to be kind of featuring different products as we basically document our journey. And we're going to be going off and basically truly working remote and traveling around the US and being able to, meet people that, we have all these LinkedIn relationships with. We're going to go and meet them in person. We're going to be able to document that and basically really test this concept of living and working truly remote and being able to go off the grid for a while, get Wi-Fi set up in the RV and test this whole idea of truly working from home and taking it on the road.
I'm going to watch that videos. And then hit me up when you're here in Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah, I will do. And everyone I've said it to is like, I would definitely watch that. I'm like, that's got to be way more interesting than me talking about demand generation over and over again. I was like, that's got to be content. Maybe that'll kind of at least, refresh some of the.
It gives you a different side of more of your personal life, which is awesome.
Which exactly, yeah, it's more of an insight as to what happens, kind of, off screen, off camera. Like, it's not just talking about marketing.
Totally, awesome, Chris. Well, hey, I appreciate your time, and thanks again for joining the show.
Yeah, likewise. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, cheers.